Hello and welcome to another edition of the Typical Boro podcast. I'm your host, Steve Dixon. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please please leave comments. If you're listening via other platforms, please rate and review. It's very important. We do appreciate it. As always, we're on the Red Radio every Tuesday, 6 till 7. On my screen, I have my ever-present, Mr. Graham Bandira, fresh from a few drinks in Harrogate with myself on Thursday. Are you all right, Bandy? You all right?
I'm all right. What about you?
I'm recovering. I'm getting better.
No half measures when you go out with the Bandito, you know.
Definitely not. And we also have our guest, TalkSport writer, Middlesbrough content creator. He's been on before. Second appearance for Phil Spencer. Welcome, Phil.
To see you. How are you doing? You all right?
Good,
Good,
yeah,
Phil.
brilliant.
Good to have you back on, mate.
Good to have somebody with a bit of sense to
be
talk, Boro.
Sorry that. Yeah.
So, obviously, we're going to go back through the Middlesbrough game, unfortunately, against Leeds and what's just happened against Millwall. But there was another big Middlesbrough game recently, last Sunday, actually, on the 8th of December. And that was Middlesbrough ladies. Important to give them a mention. They've had a good rise over the last couple of years. A little bit of background information. They play in the FA Women's National League Division 1 North. They are currently sitting in 5th position. They are only 4 points off Leeds, who are top, and they've got a game in hand, and 4 points off Chorley, when they've got 2 games in hand. So things are going well for Middlesbrough ladies. And Phil, you went to watch them in the Women's FA Cup up in Newcastle last Sunday. So how was that, Phil?
Really good experience. It was the first time that I'd actually been to see Middlesbrough's women's team. Obviously, the play. I live in Tyneside area, and the play down in Stockton, and so I kind of struggle to get to the games there really often. But yeah, I was able to get to the FA Cup game against Newcastle, and it was a really good experience. I was quite impressed by the standard really. So Newcastle United, they're in the second tier of women's football. They've had loads of money pumped into them. They're a club who are going to be in the WSL. Probably next season, if not the season after. And for Middlesbrough, I think it was really kind of a game where it was a bit of a free hit really against a team that was worth just so much more than what Middlesbrough was. But you wouldn't have thought that there was 2 divisions difference between the 2 teams. Michael Mulhern's team, they play good football, and they showed real battling qualities throughout the match as well. And I think it's just a really exciting time for Middlesbrough women. It's as you mentioned in the league that they're playing in, so that's the 4th tier of women's football that they're playing in. It's really, really competitive, and the sort of I guess the kind of eco-structure, the kind of eco-structure of women's football is quite interesting as well, because all of a sudden there's quite a lot of money being pumped into it. There's quite a lot of money in the WSL. A lot of teams are kind of turning professional, and they're forming affiliations with the men's team as well. So we've seen that with Newcastle. In Middlesbrough's league, there's a couple of teams who are professional and linked with the club. Obviously, Middlesbrough have done that in the last season or two. So it's very much a case. It almost feels like a bit of a race to get to the top. Really, all of these teams are kind of have got the same idea. They're all getting money pumped into them. They're all starting to be backed by the wider football club. And for Middlesbrough, yeah, it's just a really exciting time. There's a couple of clubs who are in a similar position in the 4th tier. Middlesbrough are hoping to get out of the 4th tier as quickly as possible and start to close in on the Women's Championship and possibly even the WSL. But yeah, it's a really exciting time for Middlesbrough women, and certainly for Middlesbrough fans, if they are looking for a club to follow, for a team to follow, it's really a really good day out. The ticket to see them play against Newcastle was £8.75. So if you're going to be complaining about the cost of match tickets to see the men's team when you can be paying like 35-40 quid, it's a really cheap day out. And as I said, they were a good team. They played good football, and they really are a team that look to be on the rise.
I noticed that they've just made a signing this week as well from Manchester City. Chelsea Calendar, only 16-year-old, apparently got bags of potential. They're happy to send them on loan to Middlesbrough. It's funny how Middlesbrough's men's team's doing exactly the same, getting players from Man City. There's now a link with the women's team getting players on loan from Man City. And have a big game this weekend as well against Nottingham Forest in the quarter-final of the National League North FA Cup as well. So that's another decent game for them to progress. So do you think they've got a decent chance of promotion this year, Phil? Because as I say, the league table looks looks in a good position.
Yeah, I do. I do think they're in a really good position, as you mentioned. If they're fifth at the time of recording, it's they are looking good. They are looking strong. There are a few teams who are up there and who are going to be challenging, but I think Middlesbrough are right up there. They've got some really good quality players. There's kind of, I guess, the women's football community in the North East. It's a bit of a sort of quite a small sort of circuit. So you've got Newcastle in the second tier. You've got Sunderland and Durham who are in there as well. Quite a lot of the lasses who play for Middlesbrough as well. They are people who have come from Sunderland's setup, from Newcastle's setup. Mick Mulherney, he's really well renowned in the women's game. He's a really top quality coach in the women's game. He's represented a couple of the other clubs in the North East as well. And yeah, we really are just in a good position to kick on and hopefully secure promotion this season. And try and kick on and close in on the Women's Championship and possibly even the WSL at some point in the future.
Well, good luck to them. Good luck this weekend against Notts Forest, and let's hope they're getting promotion with the men's team this summer. That would be a good double. So from a quality side that's playing good football, we'll switch it over to the men's team back at Elland Road on Tuesday night. Leeds 3, Middlesbrough 1. Graham, you went on the short trek for you down to Elland Road.
Yeah, 35 minutes on a train.
Leeds,
half an hour walk from the station.
Willie Nonto, Dan James, Arneson, 3 goals. Middlesbrough consolation goal with Voba and 54 minutes. Started off with 3 changes. Matt Clark come back in for the unwell Dale Fry. Latty Lat got a start ahead of Tommy Conway, and Riley McGree come in for Bergzog on the left-hand side. So, thoughts on the lineup, Graham, and the first half?
Well, I was disappointed to see Fry's exclusion because he had such a good game at Burnley, and he was the bedrock of that good defensive display. I know we did concede 1, but we were pretty switched on at Turf Moor. Obviously, Clark come back in. It's a tricky game for him to come back into. You know, it was a baptism of fire, really. He was rabbit in the headlights first 20 minutes. Not just him, the whole team. I think Leeds hit teams early, every single game. Got the crowd behind them. They are a 12th man at times. It was very raucous, and we never got a kick. They were straight at us, straight out the traps, and battered us, to be fair. I was relieved when the half-time whistle come. Because you knew the goal was coming. Farker had come out and said he'd clearly done his homework. If he didn't do that level of homework, he probably shouldn't be in a job. So he'd singled out Borges to attack him on that right-hand side with Dan James's pace. That worked a treat for them. Borges never got in the game. He was like a punch-drunk boxer, to be fair. Dan James gave him a proper going over, and it was a case of when are they going to score rather than if. So we managed to regroup after that onslaught. Came out a little bit more assured, a bit more confident. I'm not sure quite what Carrick had said to them, but we needed to get a foothold in the game and just take the sting out of it a little bit. We got a fortuitous goal, really. It was an own goal, but we did manage to try and press them a little bit. It was inevitable that we would get some level of possession at some stage of the game. Scored a goal, and then we had a good 10-15 minute spell where we went for them a little bit, but also we had to be cautious of what was behind us because they've got runners all over the park. Aronson had a good game. The Japanese player, Tanaka,
yeah.
He ran the midfield for them. He was brilliant. But what disappointed me throughout the whole game is we had nobody on that pitch just to go and get wired into somebody and clatter someone, take a card, just to take the sting out of the flow of the game. In hindsight now, you look at Howson's performance yesterday, maybe he should have come into that game. I know he had a really, really good game yesterday, and the sort of qualities he showed yesterday would have been vital just to take the sting out of the game again once we'd scored and just sort of keep the ball a little bit. But once they got that second through our own ridiculous play, we were trying to mess about again with it. Didn't work. They capitalised quickly. Balls into Barlaser and Hackney weren't working. They were just pressing us so hard. Barlaser was an easy target on the night for them. They just knocked him up time and time again. As I say, through rank bad play, we conceded a second and then a third. And to be honest, you just need the whistle then because it could have been 4 or 5. So yeah, disappointing. We didn't turn up, to be honest, albeit we're at a 10-15 minute spell, but we didn't quite do enough. Meslier made a good save from McGree. Dork was a little bit tentative with his chance. Meslier was quick out on him. So no complaints. They were the better team on the night, and we just had to move on quickly. And thankfully we did.
Phil, was the tactics an issue and selection an issue, or was it a bit of both? Because I looked at Middlesbrough's lineup yesterday against Millwall, which we'll come to later on, and that looked like a lineup I would like to have seen line up at Ellen Road. A little bit more steel, a little bit more grit. Solbrin in goal, Howson. I just feel tactically and selection-wise, Ellen Road, Michael Carrick got it wrong. What were your thoughts on the tactics at Ellen Road to line up against a team that loves the high press and it's going to be on you, and you know the atmosphere is going to be raucous and you're going to have to ride the wave? Did Michael Carrick maybe misjudge the Leeds game?
It's kind of difficult to say, because if you go back to the cup game back in August, I was at the game back in August when we won 3-0, obviously, and it was a game where that one in particular was one where Middlesbrough were really, really effective at getting the ball and just basically playing it through Leeds' defence. It was so easy to slot a pass through the middle of their two centre backs for Bergsorg or Latti to do. And for me, that's what I kind of think maybe he was trying to do with having Dan Barlaser in there. Maybe it was a case of not trying to dominate the midfield as such, but making sure that when Middlesbrough did get opportunities on the ball, they had someone on there who could maybe spot that pass, someone who could get in behind the defenders to try and get the same kind of joy as what we did in the other cup in August. But obviously that didn't happen. It was a completely different game. As Bandy said, Farke clearly learned from what went wrong in August, and that a lot went wrong for Leeds on that evening back in August, and he's clearly learned the lessons of that. It's also a bit tricky, because I also find that with Leeds, when I do watch Leeds, they are a team who you need to strike them early. Ellen Road is, as Bandy said, that they're a really quite hostile crowd, and if they're backing Leeds, if they've got something to cheer, they're the best among the best fans in the country for that. But if things don't go well in the opening 15-20 minutes, if Middlesbrough were to get an early goal, it's a completely different occasion, because fans turn very, very quickly at Ellen Road.
Definitely
as well.
agree with that, Phil.
So that's something that obviously didn't happen for Middlesbrough. It didn't kind of work out that way. And in terms of player selection, I always sort of think that in these kind of big games, you do need your more experienced players in there. Johnny Howson would have added serious composure to Middlesbrough's midfield in that game. I personally think that Luke Ayling could have been a better selection to come in for that team. I know that he's obviously got a strong link with Leeds. I know that a lot of he still lives in Harrogate, I think, near Bandy.
Yeah. Phil, can I just mention, Ayling might have been a good fit to come in at left back for that particular game, because he knows all about Dan James. He knows how he plays, and he knows which way he's going to go. And obviously keep Dijksteel, who was in form, who had a great game at Burnley, on the right hand side. So, but it's 6 and 2 threes now. It doesn't make any difference, but that would have been an option.
Graham,
you just wonder whether that experience could have helped, really.
Just saying that though, Graham, about Ayling, good point you made there. What was more alarming was Dan James, as you know, was having Borges on toast. What was more baffling for me watching the game was, why didn't he bring Luke Ayling on once it was going clearly wrong for Borges at left back? Why not bring Ayling on? I've got it written down to come to later on, but I'm going to come in with it now. Michael Carrick makes his substitutions too late, doesn't he? Regularly,
all the time. I mean, every single fan you ask says the same thing. As soon as Farke made the 2 substitutions, which turned the game back in their favour, they were back at us again after that. We didn't do anything to combat that. That's when you got to think, right, they've made 2. How are we going to combat them? But we didn't. We just carried on playing, tried to play the same way, rinse and repeat, and they rinsed us.
81 minutes of substitutions. Middlesbrough by this stage were 2-1 down. He brought on Bergsorg and Conway for McGree and Azaz. But for me, he missed a trick. These substitutions, when you 1-1, you've got yourself back in the game. Leeds had been the better side up until that point, just about. But Middlesbrough suddenly back in the game on the front foot. The crowd's been settled down. That's when you strike, isn't it? And get the fresh legs on.
Yeah.
And also, let's have a bit of game management. Now, his game management against Millwall, which we'll come to later, was very, very good to kill the game off. Changing it to a back 5, bringing on Dale Fry. Not pretty to watch, but we've got the 1-0 win. Against Leeds, you're 1-1, 20 minutes to go. Why not be, putting out instructions on that pitch? We'll keep it tight. This is it. If we can nick it on the break, great. But if not, we'll leave Ellen Road with a 1-1 draw. But I'm going to come to you, Phil. That didn't happen. We just kept playing the Michael Carrick way, playing out from the back to Dan Barlaser, who clearly isn't a player that can play, facing his own goal. He looks terrified. He's not aware of what's around him. He never plays on the half turn. And he was playing blind passes left, right and centre. Edmondson, when we're 2-1 down to the third goal, blind pass into Tommy Conway, gets the ball taken off him. The run were ragged, get the third goal. These are experienced players on the pitch. Surely somebody should be having a word and saying, listen, it's okay to take the 1-1. Delighted with that. Sometimes you've got to be aware, yes, Phil, to change your tactics later on in games.
Yeah, I think so. I think, to caveat this, I'm a huge fan of Michael Carrick. I love the football that he's playing at Middlesbrough, and I think it's working out really well for us generally. But I think it is one of the biggest criticisms of him that perhaps he is a little bit too stubborn when it comes to changing the way that the team sets up, and I guess, as you mentioned, like coming up with a sort of plan B during a game to come up with a different tact for attacking the game, or if the game is 1-1 and go into it to try and get the winner in that instance. There is a sort of I don't want to call it like an arrogance, but there is a sort of like, this is the process, this is what we're trying to do, and we're going to do this whether it works or not, which is, on one hand, it is kind of admirable, but on the other hand, you do sort of think that that there is a time and a place for it, and there maybe is a time when you do need to change things up and adapt to the game that you're playing in front of you, not just what you want to do. And to be fair to him, he is capable of doing it. We've seen it in certainly in a handful of games that I can think of during his tenure, where I'm thinking like Leicester away last season and stuff, where he has come up with something a little bit different, and it does prove to be very, very effective. But he didn't do it against Leeds, and I don't know whether you can put that solely down to Michael Carrick's tactics, but certainly if he was able to adapt to the game that was in front of him, and like Bandy said, have put Ayling on instead of Borges to try and silence the threat of Dan James, who was causing all sorts of problems, potentially it could have had a different outcome.
Is it a case, Graham, I come to you, is it a case against the better sides, we're not quite as good as we think we are, and the better sides can work without? They know Middlesbrough's weaknesses in Borges, the middle of the park. If Barlaser's playing, he's not great, as I say, taking the ball on the half turn. He's not good on the press. So against Burnley, for example, Hackney and Barlaser's passing accuracy was 84% and 92%. But against Leeds, Hackney was 74% and Dan Barlaser was 78%. Now, the players who are playing against, Tanaka and Rothwell in the park, who were tremendous for Leeds on the night, both had 92% passing accuracy.
Yeah.
So Leeds have obviously clearly homed in on, we can win that battle. They know where Middlesbrough's weakness is there, and they've won the battle clearly. Is it a case that when we're playing away at these games, and you list them, you know the games. We're talking about your Sheffield United's away, your Sunderland's away, your Leeds away. When the crowd's against you, big clubs, good players, do Middlesbrough just need to be a little bit more game savvy in key moments of matches, instead of being, like Phil was saying, this wonderful, good to watch football that works probably 85% of the time, but against these games away from home when all the odds are against you, just a bit better game management.
Yeah, I think the differentiation in them stats you mentioned, I think it's probably because Burnley sat off us a little bit more, whereas Leeds, the propensity for them was to just attack us and steal the ball high up the pitch, which is what they did. Burnley were a little bit kinder to us, hence the performance, and we did have a lot of possession. So they were allowing us to play in front of them a little bit and then steal it in the right areas and then attack us on the flanks. Because they were a very good side, Burnley. But we were a little bit more measured in that game. I thought we were excellent. I put a tweet out last night, actually. So the Burnley game, I'd classed that as the good. The Leeds game, I'd classed that as the bad. And yesterday's win was the ugly. So we've shown three sides to us in the last three games, which is good. So it does show that we are capable of adapting. I was really pleased with Carrick's changes yesterday. But going back to that Leeds game, I just think Farker did his homework. He probably watched the Burnley game and thought, if we can pinch it high up the pitch off Barlaser and Hackney, who both had awful games, to be honest, they were just completely windswept in that game. There's a case for taking 3 or 4 players off at half-time. It was that bad. But credit to them for regrouping. Going back to what Phil says, I think when we did get back to 1-1, Carrick's probably thinking, well, somehow we've got back to 1-1. Let's keep it as it is because we're not getting beat. But now you've mentioned about making them changes, Dicko. I would have probably thought, yeah, it's time to get Howson on and try and steal a point, basically, because the goal was always going to be coming. Leeds were going to go at us again because we just didn't have enough in the middle of the park, and there was 4 out of 10s all over the pitch in that game. I thought we panicked a little bit and just didn't get a grip of that game at all, albeit the 10-15 minute spell. But even then, I don't think we were too convincing. I didn't for 1 minute think we're going to go on and win this.
Phil mentioned big moments in games, especially away from home, and just take 1 or 2 decisions which swings the game in the other way, Phil. So there's 2 moments in the game that I think really cost Middlesbrough against Leeds. The first one, I'll get your thoughts, was that was a penalty on Ryan McGree the first half, wasn't it?
It definitely was, yeah. And as you said, the big moments do change games. As I was saying earlier, it completely transforms any game, but particularly at Ellen Road, because if things don't go well for Leeds, fans do turn very, very quickly. So had that decision been given, I know this is all in hindsight, but had that decision been given and had the penalty been converted, it's a completely different match. It's a completely different occasion. The home fans are getting a little bit anxious because they're thinking, are we going to get tonked again like we did back in August? And it just completely transforms the whole thing. But yeah, alas, the decision wasn't given. I certainly thought it was a penalty, but clearly the referee didn't.
The second one, Graham, for me, was the second goal. And what I'll say about that is, Dan James, just before the second goal, gets put through on the right-hand side, and he hits a good low shot, and Senny Dieng makes an excellent save, holds on to it, great save. Now, Senny Dieng, usually in possession of the ball, takes a year to get rid of the ball. He drops it down, he rolls it out, he dribbles it out, he waits and waits and waits till somebody presses him, then he passes it. He takes ages. He made a huge mistake, Senny Dieng, on Tuesday night after he made that great save. If you watch it, he gets up, and unlike him, he throws the ball out to the right-hand side, but it's a lollipop of a throw. There's no pace on it. It's coming down with snow on it. Leeds nip in on the throw and take it off the Middlesbrough player. The ball breaks inside. There's a
Sam Byram put in a fantastic tackle.
There's a 50-50 tackle. Sam Byram wins the tackle.
That was the story of the night. They were there first every tackle. Yeah.
Off they go, back down the right-hand side, back to Dan James. Second opportunity, instead of going low, slams it in the top corner. Great finish. And on the telly on Sky, the camera's panned back and you can see Michael Carrick on the dugout when Senny Dieng throws the ball, and you can see him turn away and he's not happy, and then they go and score. And I just wonder if that was the moment that sealed Senny Dieng's fate and why he didn't play on Saturday against Millwall.
I'm sure he thought that at Burnley as well, thinking, oh God, why have I put him back in? Because that was a mistake. He was a yard or 2 off his line, and he did get chipped. Albeit it was a speculative shot from Connor Roberts, but he was at fault. But as I said in the last pod, we can argue about that all day long. It's done and dusted. But yeah, I think you could be right there. Yeah, managers make split decisions. Think, right, that's it. I'm not having him. I'm bringing Bryn back in. I've made a mistake.
So we'll move on to a little bit of happier news. We've got the Christmas prize draw winners. So thanks to Midas Cladden and Middlesbrough for putting up the prizes. Absolutely superb. So, first prize for the Sheffield Wednesday tickets goes to Sean L83 on X. So at Sean L83, you've won the Sheffield Wednesday tickets for Boxing Day. At John Chambers 001, you, sir, have won the Sir Geoff Hurst signed 1966 shirt.
Nice.
So well done to John Chambers.
Well done.
I don't know this person, but at the Edge of the Sea, you have won the Graham Bandira calendar. So well done to you. And the last winner is at Davy Lean 5. Davy Lean, well done, sir. You have won the Legacy Numbers book signed by Anthony Vickers. So well done to you 4. Good Christmas presents for you. We'll get in contact with you. We'll get them sent out. And also, if you missed out, we'll be having another prize draw in January and every other month till the season finishes, Boro fans. So keep looking on the socials for another prize draw in January. Right, so that's one bit of good news. On to another bit of good news. Middlesbrough 1, Millwall 0. Let's forget about Leeds. Let's move on to 3 points. Lat 10 minutes into the game. That's how it finished 1-0. 4 changes, sorry. Sol Bryn, just me mentioning, comes in for Senny Dieng. A surprise inclusion. He comes back. Rav Vandenberg for Matt Clark. Johnny Howson comes in for Dan Barlasa. And Bergzog starts in place of the illness, apparently, to Riley McGree. So I'll come to you. Well, I'll tell you what, since you've said that, we'll come to you first, Graham, on no comment for Riley McGree. Because I think you've got something to say about Riley McGree at the moment. He's sort of... Is he annoying you, little tad?
He is annoying me because he just appears to be made of glass. What's going on with him? When he is available, he's not available. and when he's fit, he never gets played. So, no, I've always said there's always something that sort of wrangles with me with McGree. I think he's technically, alongside Azaz, Doak, one of our best players, one of the best footballers in the league. And he's on our books, but we can never get him on the pitch. So I'll talk less about him now because there's no point in talking about him because he's just there. The only time we hear about him is when he's on a flight to Australia. So we'll see what happens with that in the new year. But I just don't think that Carrick has the same warmth towards him as I have. But my warmth is now cooling. So it'd be interesting to see what Rye's got to say at the moment.
If Riley McGree's annoying you, how much did Middlesbrough's start to the game against Millwall annoy you, Graham? And I'm talking about the first 3 minutes of the game. For those who haven't seen it or watched the first 3 minutes of the game live, can you explain Middlesbrough kicking off in the game against Millwall?
Pedestrian, sluggish. We sort of kicked off a little bit where we left off at Leeds. I just think these games, we've had a good run. You know, we beat Luton, QPR, Oxford. Then we hit that run of Burnley and Leeds, 2 nightmare games, back-to-back away games, horrendous really for any team. So I just think we're a little bit leggy anyway. Players do look a little bit tired and we started sluggish, we did. But it was one moment of magic from Finazaz, which is why he should be playing every single game, even though he was way off it yesterday. It's just that one moment of magic, little bounce pass up for Latte, and his end goal won the game. So that's enough for me. That'll do. But yeah, we started pulling and gave Millwall the opportunity to get into that game quite quickly.
Well, we mentioned Borges being targeted, obviously, at Leeds. Happened again against Millwall. And if I was Borges, I'd have been buying a few drinks for the man behind me, Sol Bryn.
Absolutely.
Two one-on-ones, Phil, in the first half. Sol Bryn comes up with the goods.
Absolutely. For me, it just shows exactly why he was brought back into the team against Millwall. I did I posted something basically saying before the Burnley game when they were talking about Senny Dieng being back fit and available, I wouldn't have dropped Sol Bryn then. I don't think he did anything wrong during his matches between the sticks, and so I thought it was quite harsh for him to be dropped. And as we've mentioned with the Burnley game and the Leeds game, I don't think Dieng did anything that warranted being the number one goalie. So I think it was the right decision from Michael Carrick, and credit to him for making that call. He could have very easily sat back and kept Dieng in goal and said, nope, he's my number one goalkeeper. Yeah, he's had a rough couple of games against Burnley and Leeds, but I'm going to stick with him. But he took the decision because Sol Bryn he's a really talented young goalkeeper, and as we saw against Millwall, he does have a much more like assured presence, I guess, between the sticks, and in terms of his shot stopping and his presence at keeping the ball out, which is fundamentally the number one job of a goalkeeper, to keep the ball out of the net. He showed exactly what he's capable of with 2 brilliant saves, and for me, that's exactly why he should be Middlesbrough's number one moving forward.
Michael Carrick mentioned it after the game. Actually, he's got a good presence about him, and I think that, you know, for a modern day goalkeeper, because, you know, the game's evolving now, keepers are getting bigger, and he has got a good size, a good presence about him, but also he's got good hands. And unlike a lot of the foreign goalkeepers who tend to like to knock the ball and push the ball away, I've noticed with Sol, he's got good hands. If he can catch it, he'll catch it. And what really pleased me on Saturday wasn't actually his 2 excellent one-on-one stops. It was when balls were coming in the box. If he was able to catch it, he was catching the ball. Yeah. Where I think in there's moments, if that was, I'm not calling them out, if that was Senny Dieng, he'd be punching it away, knocking it away. It's great to see a goalkeeper, when you're under pressure a corner's coming in the last 10 minutes. There's nothing better for the manager, the players, and the fans in the stand is to see your goalkeeper come and take the ball. Brilliant.
Great point that
it brings confidence right around the stadium. Can you remember years ago in the promotion game against Brighton, in the last kick of the game, the ball comes in, Dimmy comes up, catches the ball. It was like a goal going in. The whole stadium was up, because that's what you need from your goalkeeper in them moments. And I think Sol Bryn's got that. And
it's a great comparison. Really good. Yeah.
And I hope he leaves him alone now and gives him this run of games that's coming up. And I think he can only get better. He's only he's 24. He's not young. He's good, but he's still got time to learn and develop. And the more he plays, I think we could have a good goalkeeper on our hands. So it was a really assured performance by Sol Bryn, and he was rightly. Well, I take it he was given man of the match, because if he wasn't, he was man of the match. Really good performance. But we got to half time, 1-0 up, like you said, Graham. Great goal. Good to see Lattialat back on the score sheet. A really energetic performance by Lattialat. Worked his socks off, ran the channels, worked hard.
He did his role of defending from the front, which alleviated a little bit of pressure, behind him. So yeah, I thought he had a good game, did Lattialat. But he just didn't get many chances. The one he got, he took, which was great, and then I thought we would have kicked on after that. But for whatever reason, we sort of dragged ourselves down to their level a bit with poor play. We weren't at it yesterday, but we did enough. And if we mentioned the changes that Carrick made, he did make changes, effective changes at the right time, which saw us see the game out.
Coming to you, Phil, on the second half. Obviously, Middlesbrough couldn't get the second goal, couldn't get the game won. They had a few half chances, but it was quite a tight game, quite a nervy ending to the game. How important was it for you, because obviously you're a big fan of Michael Carrick, to see the development of Michael Carrick on Saturday, where maybe the mistakes and the lessons that he learned from Elland Road, he rectified against Millwall, bringing on Dale Fry, going to a back five. And what I would say is, when we went to the back five, we never looked like we were going to concede in the last few minutes of the game.
It was a really good managerial performance from Michael Carrick. It was, as you mentioned, he maybe did learn from what happened against Leeds, but I think the most important thing against Millwall, it didn't matter how it happened, was just getting back to winning ways. It had been a difficult week against Burnley and Leeds. We've got a run of games coming up which are generally quite favourable. So there's a big opportunity for Middlesbrough to build another winning run as we move into January. And I think the most important thing was to get a win, whatever way it came. It didn't have to be pretty. It was just about getting the other 3 points on the board. I think the thing that pleased me most was Michael Carrick coming out in the press conference after the game, and what was it he said? Basically, did he say it was his favourite win of the season?
His favourite win of the season,
which
exactly.
To me, which I really liked, because
I like that.
I'm sort of contradicting myself from what I said earlier on in the pod, where I was kind of saying about how there's almost like a sort of arrogance about him, about how he approaches games and how he likes to play his kind of style of play. But that comment by itself kind of shows that that's not what he's about. He is about trying to grind out performances as much as possible, trying to grind out these victories. It doesn't all have to be pretty attacking football all the time. And so the fact that we weren't great against Millwall, we were able to get over the line, albeit only just, because it was a nervy second half. But the fact that we did get the 3 points, and Michael Carrick was happy with that. He wasn't saying, we should have won 3-4-0, whatever it might sort of be. He just said, I'm just really happy that we managed to grind out that win. And that is really encouraging for me, because it does show that he does sort of have that mindset where it doesn't all have to be pretty and fantastic all the time. Getting the 3 points is the most important thing. And I think, as we were kind of saying, with a lot of players being tired and fatigued, and with fixtures starting to pile up, and as we move into the second half of the season, I think there's going to be more and more games like that. We're not going to be able to go out and play free-flowing attacking football with Finn Azaz popping shots in the top corner every time he gets on the ball every single week. It's going to be about going out there and grinding out these results, and that was a really encouraging thing to see, that we were able to do that.
I think Carrick's words suggest that he's sort of patting himself on the back, because he is actually learning. So he's learning every week. He's still a young manager, so we can't be too critical. So yeah, big plus start for Carrick yesterday, and I think he's right in saying that it was one of his favourite games, even though it was, in my opinion, an ugly game. But these are the games we got to win.
When he was at Man United, Man United won a lot of games like that on the travels, especially in Europe, where they would shut up shop and take the wins. So he probably, he'll have it in his locker as a player, but it seems to have took an age for him to unearth it as a manager. I think he's probably had to take a few painful defeats and maybe a few words from his coaching staff in Ledbetter and Woodgate and other people around him who have maybe said, listen, you know, we possibly could have got a point today. Or, you know, I'm thinking of the Watford game away when we're 1-0 up and lost 2-1 later on. The Leeds game, obviously we just had that one there. So maybe it took a few painful defeats for Michael Carrick to come to terms with actually sometimes you've got to have a plan B and sometimes you've just got to see games out. And on Saturday, like Phil said, he got it absolutely bang on. So, yeah, good to see.
I saw an interesting interview with House, and you could sense, because he had such a good game yesterday and he was in control of that game. So I had the utmost confidence in him and the rest of the team seeing that game out. But you just know how desperate he was to feature at Leeds. And I think he knows how much of an impact he could have had on that game. He could have done at Leeds what he did yesterday, and we might have got away with 1 point there. But that's done and dusted. And I'm sure Aileen thinks the same as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring a random in here, right? It's been a little while since I had a little bit of a Dicko rant. So I was at the fan zone on Saturday, and I seen you there, Graham. And I was looking around, and we're seeing Gary Phillipson as always, brilliant presenter, come down, and he showed me that he was wearing about 8 layers of clothing, trying to keep himself warm. He goes up on the podium in all weathers, and you just thought to myself, when the fan zone was created, it was a great idea, and it come after COVID, and was when people were like, social distancing and, wanting to be out in the open air and this, that, and the other, and it worked quite well. I think that day's ran its race. I just think Middlesbrough now need to be doing something more with that fan zone. You can't have supporters going to a fan zone and standing in snow, rain, hail, wind, sleet, all the way through November, into December, into January, into February, and expect to enjoy it. And not only that, pay £5 to £6 for a pint for the pleasure. Turn around.
If you can call it a pint.
Turn around, look to the Ayson Park gates and see all the Steve Gibson and Bowser and all them up there with Sky Sports and all the warmth, drinking their Peronis. And they can't be looking out their window, looking down at us peasants in the fan zone, freezing to death, and think that's acceptable. So I was just thinking, we're getting this new badge for the 150th anniversary and this, that and the other. We don't need a new badge. Just put it back to the 86 one and just make it 1876. That'll do.
The
nice
one you got on your shirt will do.
That'll do. Nice and easy. Just change the date. That'll do. Yeah. No problem, Steve. There's your badge sorted.
Job done.
Save the money on that. Job done, right? Why don't we try and get a better fan zone for the fans, for Gary Phillipson, for the 150? We've got a great presenter. He's great. You have all these people doing for charities, for Alzheimer's, food banks, standing there shivering with the buckets, trying to get some money. They're getting interviewed for money that they're doing for all these great causes. I think, come on. Let's get this better. Let's get somewhere where people can sit indoors, sit outdoors. Away fans. There's nothing around the Riverside Stadium other than Navigation Pub and the Six Medals within miles. Why don't we get something at the ground where the away fans can come and enjoy? The home fans that want to go straight to the stadium can come and enjoy. And also, if they do it properly, it would be a money maker for the club, would it not? You could have midweek events there when there's music concerts on. People that go could eat there, drink there. Surely, or is it just me, we should be having now, after it being open for so many seasons, Middlesbrough Football Club pumping some money into that fan zone and giving Gary Phillipson, and the people there and the fans a better fan zone than what we've got, yeah?
Should mention at Turf Moor, the Burnley game, they have a Turf Moor fan zone. It's basically like a giant sports hall, and a lot of fans, home fans mainly, congregated in there. I went to the cricket club just next to it, which was good as well, and that was very welcoming. But yeah, obviously Burnley have done it, but they've got a few more quid than us, haven't they, through parachute payments, etc. So they've probably been able to do that. But it's a good point you raise, yeah. I mean, no one complains about the fan zone in summer. August, September, into October, you've got sort of hot, mild, summery nights. But in the winter, it's not the most welcoming and appealing of places. You generally want to go in the concourse just because there's a roof over your head and it's slightly warmer, but not much.
I mean, the obvious argument which people will come back to, and by the way, Boro fans, listen to this podcast if you're interested in this debate about the fan zone. So please, leave your comments, tell us what you think, ideas and stuff, because there'll be people probably shouting at the screen, blah, blah, blah. But obvious argument, Phil, is finance, money. Why would Steve Gibson release some money to make a better fan zone? However, you can't just keep waiting for the Premier League money to drop to improve the facilities at the ground. And I'm thinking the concourses, the faded pink seats, and the fan zone immediately stand out. We can't wait forever and a day for the Premiership money to drop to upgrade the facilities. We've only had one season in the Premier League in the last 16 years or whatever it is. We could go another 16 years until we're back. Surely we're not going to wait another 16 years to upgrade the Riverside facilities. I think the fans deserve a little bit better, don't you, Phil?
I think it's all about the fan experience, isn't it? At the end of the day, you want supporters to come and support the team and have a good time, not just watching the football, but in terms of the overall experience at the Riverside Stadium. I think it's really important that money's put in there, because I think at the end of the day, it's about investing in these sort of marginal gains, isn't it? If fans enjoy coming to the matches and they enjoy what's going on beforehand, as you mentioned, the club are going to be making money from it, from people buying beer and buying food and that sort of thing outside. It also means that fans maybe go into the other ground a little bit happier, a little bit more buoyant. It means that when the game starts, the atmosphere might then in turn be slightly more positive. And they're all very small things, but they are marginal gains. And I think if you are looking at the overall performance of the club, you want these things to be happening so that the team and the club are thriving on as many levels as possible. So yeah, I think fans really do need to be kind of appreciated a little bit more at the Riverside Stadium. I mean, ticket prices and that sort of thing, that's a whole nother debate, I know, but I think tickets are very, very expensive at the Riverside, and in an area where people are struggling a lot at the moment in terms of the cost of living crisis and that sort of thing. I think it's really, really important that the club do as much as possible to, first of all, make it as affordable for people as possible. But then if people are turning out and they are paying money for tickets to come to these matches and come to events at the Riverside, make it a memorable experience for them. Make it so that they come and they think that was brilliant, that was well worth the money, I want to come back next week. But as you said, if you're out there shivering over an ice cold pint of beer in mid-December or whatever it might sort of be, then you're kind of going to be going, do you know what, it's all right, I might give this a miss next time because it wasn't that great. Particularly if you're going and watching a game like Millwall where the football's pretty crap as well.
Yeah.
It's a good point. As I say, the ticket pricing, we're one of the most expensive teams in the division to watch. So that's fine if the ticket prices are going to be high. When you get to the ground, that should reflect in the facilities that you're going to use. And with the greatest of respect in the world, in my opinion, the concourses, the toilet facilities, the seats in the stadium, in the fan zone, need an upgrade. And I hope people at the club, behind the scenes, acknowledge this and are looking to make things better moving forward. So that's a little rant over. If you liked it or you didn't like it, please leave your comments and tell us what you think. But we're going to move into the Christmas fixtures, guys, because they're coming thick and fast. We have Plymouth next on the 21st, Sheffield Wednesday on Boxing Day on the 26th, 29th, we're home to Burnley. 1st of January, we've got Hull City away, and on the 4th of January, Cardiff at home. First thing that stands out to me of those fixtures, 3 of the 5 are against the bottom 4 teams. Plymouth are sitting 23rd with no wins and 6. Hull City are sitting 24th with no wins and 12. And Cardiff City are sitting 21st with no wins and 7. Graham, that's got to be a big opportunity for Middlesbrough to make ground on not just sort of putting yourself into a safe position in the playoff spots, but actually maybe just starting to look at second place now again.
I mean, after the Leeds game, I pretty much wrote off top term. I've been a massive champion of it all season, saying it's on. I still believe we've got the capability in terms of squad, because we do play good football and we can beat anybody. But that Leeds game just set us apart a bit. We might have gained a little bit more ground on them yesterday if they hadn't pinched the last minute bloody equaliser with a no goal. That's what they do, they're relentless. Anyway, there's definitely 4 possibly 5 wins out of them next 5 games. Why not? We've got to aim high. We had that run of games where we beat Luton, we beat QPR, we beat Oxford. We finally beat the teams which we thought we should beat. And we got that great point at Burnley. The only slip-up really has been the Leeds game. So we are in a good run of form, even though we do look a little bit spent at times. Namely, Dork and Azaz, they looked really, really quiet yesterday. They just didn't quite get in the game. But a little refresh, and if they're good to go again in this next glut of games, then there's no reason why we shouldn't pick up 12, possibly 13, 15 would be nice. But yeah, 12 to 13 points. I'd probably look at Burnley game at home as being a really, really tricky fixture. Possibly another draw in that one. But it's hard to sort of preempt what's going to happen because we don't know about injuries. We could lose, the Boro meme might strike again and we might lose all our best players. Rav might be out for another month. He might have picked up a niggle yesterday that we'd never seen, So we don't know, but you can only take the awful cliche, take each game as it comes, but you just hope Rooney's in a job before Plymouth plays on Saturday. And then the home game against Burnley, probably a draw. We should dispatch of Hull, really. We were quite comfortable against them at home. They're quite enterprising for a team so low. They do try and attack you, so we could pick them off. And then, obviously, what's the other team? Just looking at my calendar. Chef Wed, Boxing Day, sell out, huge game. We tend to do well in Boxing Day fixtures at home. So I should see 3 points in that game as well. So yeah, four wins, possibly a draw against Burnley. So the table will look a lot healthier after that, if that is to happen. But I'm no Mystic Meg, am I?
That's the big word there, like Graham said. If, Phil. If.
It's always an if with Boro, isn't it?
So if, and we'll go with a massive if, Middlesbrough were to get 4 wins out the 5 or 4 wins and a draw out the 5, which is, when you look at the fixtures, very, very feasibly possible, and you could almost say should happen. Would that put Middlesbrough back in the mix for the automatics? We're 8 points adrift the Leeds in second spot, or is that still, in your opinion, has that ship sailed?
The ship sailed because I think anyone who has followed the Championship for a number of years, like any Middlesbrough fan who has followed it for far more years than we would have liked to, knows that things can change really quickly. It is a long season. There's going to be a lot of games played between now and May, all these kind of cliched phrases that everyone kind of comes out with. I do think that these next few games, these next 5 games, are a massive opportunity to maybe undo a little bit of the damage of what was done against Leeds and Burnley. Obviously, we are playing Burnley, so if we can get a victory against them, that's automatically not just 3 points gained, but it's a couple of points that Burnley won't be getting there and then as well. I think if we can, like Bandy said, I'm quite optimistic about these games. I think that we have the potential to really get quite a nice high tally from these matches. 12, 13 points, I certainly think is doable. I've got a funny feeling about that game against Burnley. Where I think we'll be able to get a victory against them. I think I saw enough of Middlesbrough against Burnley at Turf Moor to think that on home soil, when Middlesbrough are kind of playing their way in front of their fans and that sort of thing, I do think that I do think that that's a game where Middlesbrough could come out on top. And I think if we are able to get a decent tally from this, I'm not saying it'll put us back into a top 2 contention, but I do think it'll close the gap. And if that gap can even just be 4 or 5 points or something like that, then you are looking at it and going, do you know what? I think if we can keep this up, we will need to keep it up between now and the end of the season, because we do have a lot of work to do to not only close that gap by us winning games, but also we're going to need the teams at the top to be dropping points as well. I do think there's a big opportunity there to do it. I wouldn't write it off just yet. I think it's unlikely, but I think that it's certainly possible. And the main thing that we need to do is just go out there and win these games. And when you do have a generous run of fixtures, like we do, not just in the next 5 games, but probably in the next 10 games or so, I think we need to go out there and rack up as many points as possible to keep ourselves in the mix.
I think getting Morris back would give us the best chance of a maximum points haul, but we don't quite know how far off he is yet. It's been proven in the last few big games where we didn't bring Howson in. We played Barlaser, which we did say Barlaser was on a good run of form. He played quite well in favourable games for him, in my opinion. Games where we have a lot of the ball anyway and retention's good, and he can just pick off little passes when came to the crunch in a big game, he was hopelessly missing. And I'll be critical of Hackney in that game as well. He's almost trying too hard, I think, at the moment. He needs to find his form quickly in order to propel us to some more points.
Carrick actually said that he thinks that Morris could make it back before Christmas, which to me tells me he's targeting the Sheffield Wednesday game on Boxing Day. Now, that would be a big boost for the Boxing Day game. I just think the situation we're in now, if Middlesbrough are going to have a push for the top 2 in their hands, and this is their opportunity, these 5 games are going to be key for the rest of the season. You're playing the bottom teams in the league, which you should be winning, getting maximum points from. You've got, a big game at home and a sellout crowd against Sheffield Wednesday, and a big game against Burnley at home at Christmas time, which should be a good crowd there as well, live on Sky. 5 really winnable games, and if you are able to do what they should do, which is at least win 4 of them, that would probably put Middlesbrough back in the mix of having a sniff at that second spot, automatics. But again, can we not do the typical Boro, the typical Boro meme, and just do what you need to do? And if they do, and I've said on here weeks and weeks ago, I think the top 2's gone. But if they were to do 4 wins out of 5, or 4 wins and a draw, or even unbelievably, which isn't impossible, win all 5 games, I think that would put us back in the mix going into January, and it would also sharpen Steve Gibson's mind going into the January transfer window, where, in your opinion, Phil, what would we need if we were still, like you said before, going into January 3-4 points off the top positions? Do we need another Ben Doak just to ignite the place, or a Gaston Ramirez type signing in January that's going to, propel it to the Premier League? Or is it a lot simpler than that, and it's just about keeping our best players, maybe adding a left back? What do you think, Phil?
I think Middlesbrough need anyone in January, to be honest. I think in terms of when you look at the squad, when everyone's fit, which is the caveat to this, I think we are well stocked in pretty much every position. There's no real position where I look at it and go, we desperately need an improvement in that area. There's a couple of areas where you think, it would be nice to sign, like you mentioned, left back there. I do think that's a position which over the next maybe 6 to 12 months we probably will look to strengthen again, because I don't really feel like that left back issue has been solved just yet. Right back, I think we could also do with a quality right back at some point, but I don't think they're urgent needs in the January transfer window. I think the main thing is going to be getting everyone back fit, really, because when everyone is fit and we do have a full squad to choose from, I think we've got one of the best squads in the Championship. The issue is that when these fitness issues come along, that we kind of find ourselves lacking a little bit. And I think the other concern for me is, rather depressingly for Middlesbrough, is the fact that because some of these players have performed so well, it's what's going to happen in January in terms of interest in Middlesbrough's players as well. Are we going to be in a position where we need to replace someone within our squad? Is someone like Latiolaf going to get a move to the Premier League, or could Ben Doak be recalled, or could Finn Azaz get some surprise interest, that sort of thing? I'm not exactly sure whether that will happen, but I think for Middlesbrough it probably will be a case of almost just kind of consolidating what they've got in terms of the squad during January. There might be an opportunity to sign a player. I know that that lad from Aston Villa, Louis Barry, who's absolutely tearing it up with Stockport, I know that he's been linked, and I think he would add some crucial quality in attack if he did come in. But if he did come in, that would mean that someone would have to head out the door, because we do have a full squad of 25 at the moment. There's no vacancies within that squad as it stands at the moment. So if he came in, would Mika Hamilton potentially have to head out on loan, perhaps for the second half of the season? That might not be.
There's an option to swap him at Stockport. Bring in Louis Barry and send Mika Hamilton to Stockport. I think that would benefit both players.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely one we should be trying to bring in, Louis Barry. He's quality. You talk about another Doak. I'm not saying he's as good, but he'd be as balanced on that left-hand side. That would be a potent strike force.
We've got some big assets at the football club who would bring in some money. Vandenberg obviously stands out. Latiolaf obviously had the interest from Ipswich, and one or two others, Finn Azaz. If Middlesbrough were to be tempted like they were last January, when we let Morgan Rogers go to Villa, and we were still in contention of the top 2, would that smack of lack of ambition for Middlesbrough Football Club, or is it just that's the way football is now?
It would smack of ambition. It would be a kick in the face to supporters, in my opinion. Football fans aren't interested in the business side of clubs. They want to see the best players on the pitch. So I'd be absolutely destroyed if we lost Vandenberg, Finnazaz, Dork was recalled. We lost Lath because he's done well to resurrect his form now after his cheeky little transfer request last time. So he's done well to find favour with the fans again. We've got that rapport going again. I noticed yesterday he was straight up to the Red faction. Good to see them back, by the way. So that's good. Straight up to the fans celebrating. So we've got that bond back. So everything's going quite well. So yeah, back to your question, Dicko. It'd be ridiculous. Just if the player wants to move on, then promise them a move in the summer. Say it will happen, but you've got a job to do here first. We're the ones paying your wages. Things are looking quite rosy, so why spoil it? I think Gibson's got that glint back in his eye. I think he does want promotion, and we're not far off.
I remember your friend Bernie Slaven on here talking about that and said it benefits the football club in terms of finance. It benefits Steve Gibson. But it doesn't benefit us as the paying supporters. It doesn't benefit the players. It doesn't benefit the manager. If you let one of your big stars go out the door in January, and it causes upset within the dressing room. That would be I hope Steve Gibson shows the resolve he showed in the summer, and says to the best players, "We're in the mix for the Premier League. If we don't make the Premier League in the summer, I'll promise you the move." But
that's what's standard. That happens in a lot of clubs. And while you're doing well, stay well, and ensure that momentum keeps going.
Do you think that'll happen, Phil, or do you think it's just football's changed and if the big bids come in, they've got to go to balance the books?
As much as I personally agree with Bandy in terms of I think we should be doing everything that we possibly can to keep the squad together, I'm not sure that it kind of works like that. I think in terms of Middlesbrough's business model, the way that Kieran Scott goes about things, I think if interest does come in and it meets Middlesbrough's valuation or it exceeds Middlesbrough's valuation, I do think they would sell someone. I think there has to be a bit of a limit on that. I think Middlesbrough typically over the last couple of years have been quite sensible. They haven't really offloaded too many players at the same time, so I can't see a situation where we lose maybe like 3 or 4 of our top players in January or anything like that. I think if we were to sell anyone, they would probably allow one person to leave, and then that would be it, and then we'd sort of like move on and sign a replacement, so it wasn't causing too much upheaval to the squad. But I certainly think in terms of the way that football is at the moment and the way that Middlesbrough do business, I think money talks at the end of the day. I think if someone comes in with good money for one of our players and the player wants to leave, I think ultimately that move will end up happening, as frustrating as it is for supporters.
Yeah, if I was to pick a surprise player that may move on, dare I say McGree? Only because I know we could probably get decent money for him, but he's just not played enough games for us. And I think the insurance policy's there with Rav van den Berg, actually, because any manager worth his salt would look and say, how many games are you getting out of him? Well, he's only played half the games he should play. He's always injured. So that might end up working in our favour. We might be able to keep him because he's not played enough games. But with McGree, just don't know, it's just up there, it's down there, it's up there, it's down there. There's no middle ground with McGree. He either plays or he doesn't, and he's never had a run in the team. I don't think he's had a run since he was here for more than maybe 4, 5, 6 games. There's always something that's niggling away, whether it's an injury or he's away on international duty. But it's frustrating because he's quality.
Yeah, if you were to tell
quality,
me,
that's why we could bring in money for him.
Yeah, I think if you were to tell me that at the end of January we'd be able to keep every player in our squad but Riley McGree would leave, I think I'd be okay with that. I don't like Bandy said. I think in terms of the matches that he plays, the amount of time that he's available for, yes, he's quality on his day, but we don't really see it enough. I personally would be quite happy to see him move on if the money came in, it was the right offer, and if it meant that we were in a position to keep people like Finnazaz or Latilaf, people who are more consistent for Middlesbrough, people who are performing week in, week out. I think I'd be okay with that as a solution.
Okay, Phil, it's time again for another week. Typical Boro podcast has flown over again. I'd like to thank you both for coming on again, gents. Brilliant as always. Brilliant, great chat. Very knowledgeable. Fantastic. So that's it, guys. Right. Remember, Boro fans, don't say Typical Boro. Watch it, listen to it, and we'll see you again next week. Up the Boro.